Hello, and welcome to Lesson 11 of B.1, the Serengeti Unit. I'm Katie Easton, a high school science teacher using OpenSciEd. In this video, I will give you an overview of Lesson 11 and wrap up with some tips and tricks. Lesson 11 is important because we put the pieces together that we've learned about conservation plans using the Serengeti, as we encounter a new phenomena and use our knowledge to complete a transfer task. First, let's recap how we got to Lesson 11. During Lesson 10, we learned about conservation efforts in our original conservation profiles from Lesson 1. We discussed, presented, and shared our evaluations on whether the conservation plans are working in the Everglades, the Whole River, the Saguaro Desert, and Lake Michigan. At the end of Lesson 10, we started thinking about the 30 by 30 initiative and whether we can use our knowledge to make decisions on new conservation efforts in other places. Let's take a look at the highlights of Lesson 11. Lesson 11 takes one 45-minute day. This is a putting the pieces together lesson, which means that we're bringing everything we figured out during the unit together to explain a new phenomenon. The 30 minutes of material preparation listed here is to make copies of the Prairie Transfer Task. Students do not need to use their individual devices, but you can use their individual devices for completion and submission of the transfer task. There are no videos used in this lesson. In Lesson 11, students are putting together the pieces of everything we've learned to explain a new phenomenon. In this transfer task, we are focused on using what we've learned to explain the disappearance of the bison on the Midwest prairie ecosystem. We learned about the prairie ecosystem and the effects losing the bison has had on the ecosystem as we figure out a change in a keystone species can affect the biodiversity of that system. We also learn about interest holders and a plan to buy up a private land in Montana to preserve prairie and bison. We remember that humans must consider many different criteria and opinions when making decisions about protecting land in support of the 30 by 30 initiative. We figure out a few things while completing our transfer task. Human-caused changes can cause disruptions that change an ecosystem. A change in a keystone species can affect the biodiversity of that system. And humans consider many criteria when making decisions about conserving or using the natural world. Let's take a look at the key moments of Lesson 11. During Lesson 11, students are investigating a new phenomena about the Great Prairie ecosystem. They are looking at factors that affect biodiversity, human interactions that cause changes in the ecosystem, and solutions that take into consideration multiple criteria and constraints. We start with a review of the ecosystem as it was in the past and discuss human interactions that may have contributed to the disappearance of the bison. We look at a prairie interaction map like the SAGE modeler from the Serengeti unit and discuss data that links bison to different types of plants. To finish up our transfer task, we learn about a conservation plan in Montana and discuss interest holders' priorities and trade-offs. Students then decide whether the plan to unite private and public lands in Montana is a good idea. As we close out the Serengeti unit, we look forward to our next unit. In the next unit, students will be using their understandings about ecosystems to investigate and explain the zombie fire phenomena happening in the Arctic. Let's talk about some helpful strategies for Lesson 11. I read the entire assessment out loud and allow questions about the material read before moving into the questioning part of the assessments. I'll read questions fully, so question 1A and B, for example, then give students quiet time to answer the questions individually. I remind students that they can move on in the assessment, but that I will continue to read out the questions and information with wait times between questions. Number 5 always shocks my students. I allow them to collaborate on number 5. I read the little blurb above, explain how to fill in the table with priorities and compromises, and let them go figure it out together. I actively monitor and sometimes will jump into a conversation if I see a mistake or I hear a debate starting about a particular interest holder. I bring the class back together for about 5 minutes or so for a share out and what we learned from each other. They finish up the last question on their own and turn in their transfer tasks. The on-demand teacher support is a great resource. OpenSciEd curriculum allows for different theories on assessment to be used and practiced. With the curriculum being so collaborative and discussion-based, it lends to a theory of allowing students to discuss and collaborate during assessment as well. Sometimes our best thoughts come from suggestions or the thought of another's perspective. So I have changed my views on assessments. For further information about assessments and assessment theory, check out the On-Demand Hub, particularly the summative assessment pages and videos. There are no new words that we encountered during Lesson 11. There are no new posters in Lesson 11, but I do allow students access to the progress trackers during this assessment. Well, this is Lesson 11 in a nutshell. We figured out a lot about ecosystems during this unit. Know that it's okay to try out new theories and shift our paradigms about student assessment. Don't forget about the online teacher support site. It has great tools for teachers using OpenSciEd. I hope you found this helpful and join us again on our next OpenSciEd unit when students learn about zombie fires. Thank you.